Poker is a game of mistakes, and you should try to avoid mistakes as much as possible. Today, we're going to look at 5 blunders poker players make left and right, and if you can avoid some of them, then your win rate will definitely improve.
So this hand is a great example of something I see recreational players do all the time, but sometimes also regs. So here we start with ace king off in the hijack. We get called by the button, heads up to the flop, ace 10-3. You can c-bet, you can check. I would probably c-bet here with top pair, top kicker, but it's fine, we're out of position. Maybe we can go for a check raise, or if not, we can make up value on later streets. So I'm fine with a check, and the button checks behind. Now there is another ace here, so at this point, we really have to start building the pot, right? No, Hero had something else in mind. He checked again, and button checks behind. And now on this innocuous river, we now have top trips. Now we really have to get going and get some value here. Villain didn't bet twice when he had the chance, so it's unlikely he will do this on the river here. So I'll try to get some value. I would probably even overbet it if I had gotten to this point, although I probably never would. But what does Hero do? He checks for a third time with his massive hand, and now finally Villain bets, and he bets 20 to 23, so basically pot seems to have something now, so we can go for a check raise. Fine. That's what Hero does, although it's a little bit small. I would have gone bigger here, but as I said, I would never have even gotten to this point. And now we get called by, look at this, ace queen. I mean, where is the rest of this pot? It's 123 when we both had 340 more behind. We both had top trips. We had the best kicker. He had the second best kicker. We should have stacked him, but this slow playing led to such an outcome. We were slow playing him, he was slow playing us, and in the end no one actually put a lot of money in there. You might say, well done button, he didn't lose a lot here, but that's not the point. If we had had ace jack, he could have stacked us. And so it's really crazy, some players, how much they slow play big hands instead of fast playing them and getting max value for them. I witnessed this hand here at the Empire Casino in London as well. So here the cutoff makes it 10. We have pocket fours in the big blind. Happy to call. Ace queen 7. We check. If he c-bets now, I would probably fold, but we get a free turn. That's great. Another ace. We check. This time he goes for the half pot c-bet. I would probably still fold here because we're bluff catching. It's not a great spot. And if he had wanted to bluff, he could have used the good board for his range on the flop. So I think folding would be the best option here, but if you call, it's not a massive disaster. However, what Hero did next here, that is a pretty bad play. Now we have 2 aces on the board and the backdoor flush has come in. So what can we do here? Well, we can either check and basically give up. We can check and call a bet in the hope that he's just bluffing with complete air, or we can lead out really strong and represent the backdoor flush. Well, if you do the latter, then you have to go big. But look what Hero did here. He kind of probably panicked, so he didn't want to get bluffed, I imagine. So he bet a quarter pot here. Now, just try to stop and think, what do you accomplish by betting a quarter pot here? Will you fold out a better hand? Well, 5s and 6s, something like 7x. Maybe. But I mean, you're giving him 5 to 1, so he'll flick in a call with pretty much any pair that he has. So I don't think you can fold even a 7, 6s, or 5s, let alone an ace or a flush or even a queen. Okay, now the other consideration, can you make a worse hand call here? Well, I mean, again, pocket deuces, pocket threes. I don't think king high really. Plus, would any of those hands really take such a line? I mean, it's not completely impossible, but almost impossible, I would say. So basically, there is not a single worse hand that calls here, and there is not a single better hand that you get to fold here. So then what is the purpose of this bet? Actually, you might even get bluffed if you took that line with something like King 10 or King Jack or something like that. He might now even raise you rather than call. In this case, though, Hero got called by a weakish ace, which makes sense the way he played it. And Hero, not only did he waste the 10 pounds on the turn, but definitely wasted the 10 pounds on the river. That was a really bad move there, and yes, he didn't lose loads of money, but if you do this like 2 or 3 times in within 100 hands, that will really kill your win rate. This is an online hand for a change. We raise Queen Jack suited under the gun in an 8-handed game. We get 3-bet by the button, and this is already the first mistake in the hand. Calling here is pretty much just about break even, but I would just absolutely fold here. We're out of position. We have queen high. We are under the gun, so if button 3-bets us here, he might have a stronger range than if we had been cut off or hijack. I would just simply fold here, but Hero calls. Okay, ace 10-10, we check, we face a small continuation bet, which I think is fair enough. Hero can do that with a wide range. Now we have a gut shot and we have a backdoor flush draw, but note that we're not drawing to the nuts, so I'm a bit indifferent here. We could even raise here as a bluff and get him to fold something like pocket 9s, 8s, 7s if he bet that before, or he might fold king queen, king jack, something like that. But calling here I think is not the end of the world, because villain made it really small. Now we didn't improve, so I think at this point we're just in give up mode. We check, but now button checks behind. Okay, so what does this mean now? Well, it means that most likely he doesn't have a great hand. He probably doesn't have a 10. He might have ace king, ace queen, ace jack, something like that, but we do block ace queen and ace jack at least. So yeah, he might not have a great hand at this point. And now the backdoor flush comes in, and I remember where I got this hand from. The original poster was asking the question, should I represent the backdoor flush here? Well, and my answer to that is no. However, that doesn't mean that you should just give up here. But representing the backdoor flush is something I would never say that anyone should do, because first of all, representing is not the great term, and secondly, and more importantly here, no one ever believes that you have the backdoor flush draw, or the backdoor flush, sorry. So that's not the point. However, the point here is that, as I said, if we do a bit of hand reading, we can almost rule out that villain has a really strong hand, unless he's slow playing something like a boat here or quads, but then he would have done that on the flop rather than on the turn. So I think at this point we probably don't have the best hand with queen high, pretty certain even. However, we have a mandatory bluff here on this river, because if we bet a healthy amount here, something like 2/3 pot or so, we won't fold out an ace. We definitely won't fold out a 10, but as we said, he probably doesn't have a lot of all of that, and we have a good chance of folding out 9s through 7s that he might do this with, plus even a hand like king queen or king jack. But if we bet here, we have a high chance of him folding any of those hands. Instead, Hero just gave up, he checked, villain checked behind, and he indeed had the pocket 9s here. So as I said, I think this would have been a great opportunity to apply pressure here. I'm not entirely certain that villain would have folded his pocket 9s, but we would have had a decent chance, and we missed a great bluffing opportunity. This is something I include in almost every video that I make about blunders because it is something that happens all the time. And once again, the hand in question is pocket kings. We raise it up in the hijack, small blind called, already suggesting that he might not be the biggest crusher. And then we go heads up to the flop, 10-9-6 with two hearts, really not great for us. We can of course c-bet this one. If we do, then we have to go small, but I'm okay with just checking. But having the king of hearts, I would probably c-bet a little bit more than I would check, which the hero does here. Happy with that. But now we get raised. So what could that mean? Well, now I'm actually not that happy to have the king of hearts, although it's not the end of the world. Yes, he could do this with a set, he could do this with two pair, he could do this with top pair even, he could do this with a straight and with a flush draw. So against this entire range, I would not fold at this point, I would definitely call. Okay? Oh, no, it's not okay, because what does hero do here? Well, he has pocket kings, right? He has to raise it up again. Why? Well, yes, if he has the flush draw, but then he might even go all in here. And then do you call that off? I just don't think. I think this is really bad. If he was bluffing, then let him bluff on the next street once again or so. So absolutely a mistake here to raise again, because we actually don't have a nutted hand. This time we get called. So now there is a second flush draw there. Villain checks, and we now go for another bet, which I think is a bit questionable once again. I still think we should be a bit more careful. And now the small blind just jams on us. And yes, we're getting a pretty good price here, but there might be a reason for that, and that is because we are possibly drawing dead. If he has a set here, we're almost drawing dead. If he has a straight, we are drawing dead. And yes, against the flush draw, we're in good shape, but how many villains really risk so much of their stack with a flush draw here? Check raising us on the flop, then calling our re-raise, and then check raising us again on the turn. I am not convinced, so at the very least, at this point, I would be absolutely running for the woods. But not hero. He calls, and he obviously loses to a straight. Last mistake of the day. This is a hand that I played myself actually, but I was not the one making the big mistake. Instead, the Lowjack is the culprit, so he raises it up to 5 in the Lowjack. We have pocket jacks, raise it in the hijack, and he calls. King Queen 4, that is a board that we can c-bet, but I decided to go for a check this time here with my pair under the two top cards. And now on this turn, where there are two flush draws out there, he now goes about half pot. At this point, I thought he could just be messing around, not necessarily having anything, especially that half pot size often is indicative of a weaker player. So I called here. And now on this river, the queen pairs and the backdoor flush comes in. And he now makes it really big, 2/3 pot. Now, what hands should he do this with? Well, if he has a hand that's really strong, like king queen, like pocket queens, pocket kings if you slow played those, pocket fours, pocket sevens, ace queen, or a flush. So that's the value. On the other end of the spectrum, something like ace of clubs if he has that, but he shouldn't have the naked ace of club because that would be ace king, and even ace king I would not bet that big. That would already be a mistake to bet it that big, I would think. But he could have some other bluffs, maybe not necessarily diamonds, but whatever bluffs that he can come up with, something like Jack 10, for example, even though we block that one to death, but maybe 10-9 or something like that, or 5-6 suited, for example, would be a good one here to go for a bluff. So in any case, either thick value or you have a bluff. If you have any middling sort of hand, you can either check or bet small, something like 20 or maximum 25. Okay, it's not the point whether there was a good call that I made here or not. I almost timed out. I remember this was an online hand and I was really torn between calling and folding, and in the end I just decided to bluff catch. But that is not the point. The point is the hand that the Lowjack showed up with, and that hand is absolutely terrible to take this line with. Pocket tens, you should just have checked it down and maybe check called once or so, but happy to take a showdown at the end rather than, well, I don't even know, did he turn this one into a bluff? I mean, he almost got me to fold pocket jacks, so yes, maybe if he knew that I had pocket jacks, but that is pretty much the only hand ever that I would consider folding that beats him here. I wouldn't fold aces, I wouldn't fold ace king, I wouldn't fold a queen, obviously, I wouldn't fold a flush, so he was up against the one hand that might fold to this bet, but everything else, like, he would probably have gotten me to fold an underpair, and it's very unlikely, but well, you could say if I call jacks, maybe I call nines or eights or something like that, but that is such a small portion of my range, and I called the turn, don't forget that, so I will probably have something, it might even be a queen at this point, so definitely a big polarization mistake that Villain made here. Just try to always think how good is your hand within your range. If it's at the top, you can bet big. If it's at the bottom, you can bet big. But if it's in the middle, it's best to either check or bet small.
And here are 5 more mistakes players tend to make.